what is area? So someone can maybe raise their hand, or you can pop it in the chat. What is area? What do I mean when I say area? Okay, Tabang, tell us.
Ma'am, I think like area is like, you see, maybe like you work out the inside length of the shape or something like that.
Okay, so when you say the inside lengths, are you talking about just lengths, or is it like the amount of like space that it's taking up? What do you mean?
Like the spaces, the space I think of.
Good. Okay, so guys, area is basically the amount of space that a shape takes up. It's just easier for me to tell. Takes up, or you can say occupies, really doesn't matter. And so to illustrate this for us, it's quite nice to visualize this. So if we just take a basic shape, such as a rectangle, for example, and we consider the two definitions that we know thus far. So we know perimeter and we know area, or we're going to know area in a second. So perimeter is the outside length of your shape. I can't really highlight. I'm starting to think I actually failed primary school, but anyways. So perimeter is the outside length of our shape versus area, which, as we have just been told, is the amount of space that the shape actually occupies. So the space inside the shape is what we call the area. Now, Theo's put on the chat the surface area of the shape. And so I sort of want to link that with what Emmanuel said in terms of it describes the size of a surface. It is essentially that. It's saying this is how much space this specific shape is taking up. Now, in terms of surface area, that is something or a term that we deal with more when we talk about 3D shapes, but the concept is very much similar. It's how much space is being taken up by the specific shape. Alrighty, so I don't know if you want to take that down, but I'll give you a second or two to screenshot that. Tablitzo, do you have a question for us? Okay, if you do have a question, you're welcome to pop it in the chat, but I'm not too sure what's happening. There should be a little unmute pop-up coming up on your side. Okay, pop it in the chat if you need.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we can try again just now. Okay, so guys, this is where we're going to write down our formulas. So this is definitely where I would take some screenshots if necessary. Some of these you'll know, some of them might be a little bit more complicated, but hopefully we will all be on the same page by the end of it. So in terms of determining the areas of these shapes, let's choose a color. Okay. If we think about a square, we know that a square is unique in the fact that not only are all its interior angles 90 degrees, but all of its sides are equal in length. And so if I represent the side using an S, to work out the area of the square, I would say side times side, exactly as Julianda's just put on the chat. You could write this as side squared because it's two of the same variables being multiplied together. Just there was a question to go back to this question, so just in case you want to take a screenshot. But the area of a square is side times side. Just going to give everyone a chance to screenshot what they need. Okay. If we then consider a rectangle is a little bit different to a square because remember its length and breadth are now different. I'm using cursive L's and B's, you don't have to. But if we now want the area of a rectangle, all we need to do is say length times the breadth. You can also call it the width, that's absolutely fine. Either one means the same thing, but we are multiplying two dimensions. Now, just to sort of illustrate this for ourselves, so that we understand this whole idea of the amount of space a shape takes up. If I consider a rectangle, there's my rectangle, and I consider a rectangle, this is 4 blocks long and 2 blocks wide. If I want the area here, I would need to multiply those two together, and so I would get 4 times 2, which is then 8 units squared. We'll get to this unit squared thing in a second. But if I now go and actually look at my shape and say, okay, how much space is it taking up? I can see that if I color in the inside of the shape, in total, it occupies 8 blocks, which corresponds to my area of 8 units. And so this is sort of this concept of area. How much space is being taken up by the shape that I'm working with? And the same would apply for all of our shapes that we have here. Now, very importantly, when you are determining area, area is always in units squared. Now, it depends what the unit is. If it's in centimeters, it'll be centimeters squared. If it's in millimeters, it'll be millimeters squared. If it's in meters, it'll be meters squared, etc., etc., etc. But area is always units squared. So when you write down your answer, units squared. Perimeter was just units, so centimeters, millimeters, etc., etc. Area is now the units squared. Okay, so I'm going to hang on here in case you want to take a screenshot of any of that. And then we're going to have a look at the last 2 shapes that we need to know formulas for, and then we're going to do some practice on them. Alrighty. Take your screenshots. I'm about to scroll down. Okay, so the next shape we need to be able to work out the area for is a triangle. Now, does anyone, and you can just put it on the chat, does anyone know how to work out the area of a triangle? What is the formula to work out the area of a triangle? Jahan, do you want to tell us?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Area is equals to half times base times length. Half times length times base or breadth.
Okay, good. So area of a triangle is half the base
Times breadth times height.
Times height. Good, well done. Okay. Excuse me. So guys, area of a triangle is half base times height. Now, importantly, we actually need to know what those sides are. So if we go to our triangles here and we identify them for ourselves, so this B is our base length, and basically it's like the length at the bottom, it's the base. So if we go to all of our triangles here, these are all of our base lengths of the triangle. Now this bottom triangle is a little bit weird looking, but we'll chat about it in a second. And then as we were told, the H then stands for the height of the triangle. Now, very importantly, this height of the triangle must always be at a right angle or must be perpendicular to the base, and it must always go from the maximum or highest vertex down to the base. So for the right angle, we can very clearly see that the highest point of the triangle is at that vertex there, and it goes down to the base. It's at a right angle, so that would be my height of my triangle. For the triangle top left, the highest point of my triangle is that vertex up at the top there. We then want to measure the height down to the base, but perpendicular to the base or at a 90-degree angle. And then for this last triangle, we can see that the highest point is this vertex up here. But when we drop the perpendicular base, that's no longer inside my triangle. Now, that's not a problem because the base length then is only the length within the triangle. I'm not including this little extra bit there. So that doesn't matter, but we do just need to bear it in mind. Now, what is important, guys, is hopefully you can see here is that anytime I'm working out a height, I'm creating a right angle triangle. And so if I'm even not giving you the height, it means that you can use Pythagoras to go and work it out. Obviously, you need to have enough information to do that. But to work out a perpendicular height in a triangle, you can use Pythagoras. We are going to do examples like that, so don't stress, but just keep it in your mind somewhere. Okay, so area of a triangle, half base times the height of the triangle, and the height of the triangle is always from the highest vertex down to the base at a right angle to the base. I'm going to let you screenshot that if you need it, and then we're going to have a look at the area of our last shape that we need to know before we do some examples. Right. Can anyone tell me how to work out the area of a circle? You can pop it in the chat. You can raise your hand, up to you. How do we work out the area of a circle? Felisa, tell us.
Ma'am, we say 2 times what is it? That ma'am, I don't know the name, I forgot the name. Pi times radius.
Okay, so 2, hang on. Just do it like this. If we are using the formula 2 times pi times r, this is now the formula for the circumference. Okay, and this is why circles can be a bit confusing. I don't know, guys, writing today. Circumference. So this is now to determine the outside length of my the outside length of my circle. So basically the perimeter of the circle. We now want to be able to work out the area. So we just need to be careful. Nkululeko, do you want to tell us?
Ma'am, is it 2 pi r squared?
Very close. It's pi r squared.
Oh.
So guys, for the area, we don't have the coefficient of 2 and we square the radius. If you want to write this out more expanded, it would be pi times r, but basically it is pi r squared. Now, this is important, and the way I sort of try and remember the difference between these formulas is because remember we said here is that area is in units squared. So I remember my formulas in that the formula with the squared in it is for the area of the circle. The formula without the squared in it is for the circumference. That's how I remember the difference. You need to remember it how you want to remember it. But the area of a circle, pi r squared. Tabang, do you have a question for us?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I see here you said pi times r times r. Can't you just also say pi times 2r?
Okay, so just be careful. 2r comes from saying r plus r. If I've got r times r, according to my exponential laws, that becomes r squared. So that's why we can write it as pi r squared.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, good. Okay, so guys, very good question. Just because there's 2 r's there, I'm multiplying the 2 r's. So it ends up as r squared. Okay, I'm just waiting for everyone to take a screenshot. And then we are pretty much halfway. So I think let's take our brain break now, and then we'll do some examples after that. Our brain break is going to be the same as usual. First person to get the right answer, we're going to keep an eye out on the chat. We'll ask you to then explain, but remember, put your answers in the chat so that we can check. Right, so here's our brain break for the day. Take careful note of the operations, take careful note of how many of each thing you have. And like I say, first person to give us an answer in the chat, we will call on you to let us know what it is. And obviously remember that what we are looking for here is the final answer of this last expression.
Let's go, my babe. Let's see who's the winner of today's brain break. I'm flies though, yo.
I know.
Let's go, my babes. And I love the joke. Why a student wear glasses in this class to improve exam vision? No. Let's go, my babes. If you calculate nicely, step by step, you will get the answer really quickly.
Yeah, take note of your operations, take note of how many of each thing there are. Pelesa has helped us out for the first one.
Remember, we're looking for the final answer, my babes. So far, we haven't seen it. Once we see the final answer, we'll let you know.
Mm-hmm. Sure, Pelesa has been so nice today, helping people out.
Yeah, Palisa, you are helping everyone out. Let's go, my babes. Y'all can do this. Yay, Samek. Samek, do you want to raise your hand so you can tell Teacher Sam and I how you got the answer and the rest of the class? Well done. It is indeed 82. Can you please raise your hand if you don't mind? So you can tell the class how you got it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, Sammy, tell us.
Ma'am, good evening, ma'am.
Hello.
So how I got the presents was I minused, I saw that there were 3 presents, so I divided 3 from 30, which got me 10.
Good.
For the second one, I think, ma'am, I forgot how I did it, but I think I did reverse, in reverse,
Inverse operations.
inverse operation,
Yeah.
ma'am, where I took the presents, which were 10, and I got 20.
Okay, good.
If I remember correctly, I minused it from 294, and I think, no, ma'am, I started, ma'am, I forgot. But for the last one, for the third one, I got, since my answer for calendar was 7, I took 7 plus 7, which is 14,
Okay.
and then I minused it from 158, which got me
Yeah.
144,
Yeah.
and then I divided it by 2. Yeah, I divided it by 2, which got me 12, and then I split 12 between those Christmas trees,
Okay.
which got me 6. And then for my final answer, I got 6 plus 6, which got me 12
Mm-hmm.
again, and then a present's 10, and a calendar is 14. Then I combined all of them and got
What's a calendar?
answer then.
One calendar.
8, 7. 7.
7. Good. Okay. And then which operation do we do first?
Um,
In the last one.
we do
the
multiplication
Good.
first.
So 70 plus 12 gives us that final answer of 82. Well done. Okay, guys, so just quickly, I just want to go back to the second one, because this is probably the trickiest one of all of them, because of the fact that those inverse operations become a lot harder because we only know what we're multiplying. We don't know what we're adding. And so if you sort of think about this like an algebraic equation, we know that the calendars are the same. So for lack of, let's call both of those calendars X. So we would have X plus X, but then I'm timesing that by 20. And so technically I've got 20X plus X. And so it does become a lot harder in terms of your inverse operations. And so often what needs to happen is we need to just sort of do a bit of trial and error and see what we come up with in terms of our calculation. Right. From that, obviously, if you are setting it up algebraically, you will eventually get the 14. And so that might be a useful tip going forward, is if you're struggling with it, try and set up an algebraic expression for yourself. Mostly because, and obviously I raised it even though I wanted to keep it. If we go back to what I wrote down, 20x and x are actually like terms. So we would have 21x is equal to 294. And then using those inverse operations that Sammy spoke about, we would divide both sides by 21 and 294 divided by 21 is 14, which is the value of the calendars. So it does work algebraically. And so if you are a lover of algebra, that might be a way that you go about it in future. But that was your answer. Justin, I see your hand up. Do you have a question for us?
Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
So, ma'am, I'm going to ask this question again, ma'am. So you see this thing that we're learning about this algebra.
Sorry, Justin, I can't quite hear you. Your microphone is a bit fuzzy.
That's okay.
I still can't hear you very well.
Never mind, ma'am. It's okay. I can just ask in the next question.
Okay, you can put it in the chat if you want, and then we can try help.
Okay.
Renelle, before we do some examples, do you have a question for us?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, when we get,
Yes,
ma'am, where did you get the 21 for the algebraic equation?
So basically, because these two, the 20x and the x are like terms, I can add them together. So 20x plus 1x gives me 21x.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Sure. Okay, so guys, that's just like a tip. Sometimes using algebra is quite useful. But obviously you do you. Excuse me. Alrighty, so let's have a look at some examples of working out areas of the shapes. Now, these first two are quite easy. I have full faith that you would be able to do them. I'm just going to remind you of your formulas. Our first shape here is a square. And so we know that the area is equal to side times side. Our second shape here is a rectangle, which means that we know that the area is equal to length times breadth. Okay, so I want you to try those two. You can put your answers in the chat. Remember to label them A and B. And then if you want to raise your hand to give us an answer, you're more than welcome to. Otherwise, we'll just wait for some answers. Justin, of course, is asking, when is he ever going to use this in his life? Area and perimeter is actually probably one of the most applicable uses in life. If you ever want to, I don't know, retile your kitchen, you need to know what area you need to tile so that you can work out how many tiles you need to buy. And so this stuff is actually very practical in terms of real life. If you go into construction or architecture or design, or there is another word that I just can't think of, like anything to do with sort of like home decor or building or anything like that, measurement is super important. So it is one of the most applicable real life uses of maths. Right, seeing some awesome answers. Let us see. Fonse, would you like to give us the answer for A and explain to us how you did it?
Ma'am,
Yeah.
I said side times side, which will
Mhm.
be 4 times 4.
Yeah.
It is equals to 16 centimeters, ma'am. Centimeters squared.
Good, well done. Guys, remember that squared, it is centimeters squared, it is an area. Excellent, Fonse, well done. Who else do we have on the line? Letu, do you want to give us B?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
So I did, since it's a rectangle, the opposite sides are equal to each other.
Mhm.
So I did 4.5 times by 4.5, then 2 times by 2.
Okay, so just remember, we only want to times one length and one breadth. So we don't need to do the 4.5 twice.
Okay, ma'am.
So it's 4 times 5 times 2. And that will give us our area. Do you want to tell me what that answer is?
It's 81, ma'am.
4 times 5 times 2.
Oh, wait. That's 9, ma'am.
Good, well done. So this would be 9 meters squared. Okay, so guys, this is actually very important. What we need to remember is that according to my formula, it is just one length times one breadth. We're not doing both like we usually do in perimeter. And so what that means is that I don't need to have all 4 sides necessarily, or don't need to work with all 4 sides. I just need to multiply the length times the breadth. Our units is then units squared, but in terms of our answer, we just multiply each of them once. Again, remember meters squared because it is area and the units I have been given were meters. So it needs to be meters squared. All right, guys, very nicely done. Well done. Take your screenshot if you need. And then we're going to have a look at some others. Right. So here we have got a triangle and a circle. So again, I'm going to get you to try it by yourself. The area of a triangle, remember, is equal to half times the base times the height of your triangle. And the area of your circle is equal to pi times r squared. So think about, especially for your triangle, which length is your base length and which is your height, and then go and substitute in order to find those areas. Again, you can put your answers in on the chat using C and D. I'm going to give everyone a second or two to just work it out, and then I'll take some hands. And then guys, just for the area of the circle, can you please round it off to 2 decimal places? Obviously, you need to follow the instructions that you're given in the test or the exam, but I'm going to give you an instruction of 2 decimal places. Right, Emmanuel, do you want to give us question C?
Oh, ma'am, I didn't do question C, I did question D.
Okay, give us question D.
Okay. So I said A equals pi r squared, equals pi bracket 5 close bracket squared,
okay,
equals 25 pi, and then the value was 78,54 centimeters squared.
Perfect. Guys, just quickly, I want to chat about our rounding here. Excuse me. This would be 78,5398, and then there's a whole long decimal. Now, because I said 2 decimal places, we look at the 3rd decimal and see what effect that will have on the 2nd decimal. Because it's greater than 4, exactly as Emmanuel said to us, this is going to increase my 2nd decimal place to a 4. And so what I end up with here is 78,54, and then remember your units, centimeters squared. Right, well done, Emmanuel. Oh, I've got a frog in my throat, guys, I'm sorry. Leah, do you want to give us question C?
Hi,
Is it
ma'am.
Leah or is it Leah?
It's Leah.
Leah, so sorry. Leah.
No, it's okay. So, ma'am, I said half base times height. I mean, sorry, half times base times height, which equals half times 8 times 7.
Good.
Which gave me 4 times 7. So it equals 28 centimeters squared.
Excellent. Well done. 28 centimeters squared. Thank you, Leah. Guys, just remember, in terms of identifying your sides, your base is sort of the bottom length, and your height is then the height from the top point of your triangle down to, that was shocking, down to the base at a right angle to the base. So take your screenshots if you need. Nonkulu Leko, do you have a question for us?
No, sorry, ma'am.
No problem. We are going to do more, guys, so don't stress. There will be more opportunities for you to give me answers. Renelle, do you have a question for us?
Sorry, ma'am. It's just network. Sorry.
No problem.
Network.
And Lotliso, do you have a question for us?
Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm fine.
Good.
So, ma'am, as for number D, I
Yeah.
wanted to ask if it's a full cycle, we have to use pi times r squared, and as for half cycle, we have to use pi times d.
So a half circle, if you want the area of a half circle, and actually we're going to do one now, you would work out the area still using pi times r squared, but then you would divide it by 2 to cut it in half.
Okay, ma'am.
Good.
Thank
But
you.
we are going to do a question like that now.
Okay.
Alrighty, guys. So I'm hoping we all got our screenshots there. I'm going to move on to our next set of questions. Whoops, we'll get there in the end. Right, there we go. Okay, so question A, I think you can all do very quickly by yourselves. So I'm going to let you go for it for question A. I'm not going to write anything down. As soon as you have an answer, pop it in the chat for me, or you can raise your hand. I want the area of this rectangle. Remember your units. Zalama, do you want to tell us?
Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
Ma'am, I got 37 centimeters squared.
Excellent. And how did you get that? What was your method?
Said area equals to 4 times 9,25.
Good.
Yes, ma'am.
And so that gave us the 37 centimeters squared. Well done. Very nice, guys. Well done. 37 centimeters squared, length times breadth. That's all we need to do. Okay, so now if we look at our second one, actually, take your screenshots. I always forget. Okay, if we now look at our second question, we have been given a triangle here, but it's one of those like weird looking triangles that I said are a bit of a odd situation, and we just need to be careful. Now, what we need to be mindful of is we know that the area of a triangle is equal to half times base times height. And so based on what I've been given here, I can see that this QR length is my base. But the problem is that my height, I don't have, because this length SP is the height from the top point of my triangle down to the base at a right angle. Now, I don't know what SP is, and that's a bit of a problem for me. However, I have been given enough information to go and work it out, because what I see is that SPQ is a right-angled triangle. And as Atlachang has just put on the chat, that's what it's called, we can use Pythagoras. The second I have got a right-angled triangle with a missing length, I can use Pythagoras. So if I look at this triangle here, I have the hypotenuse. So I just need to be careful. And I'm looking for one of my other sides. So 15 squared is equal to the 9 squared plus SP squared, or you can say height squared, really doesn't matter. And this is all because of me using Pythagoras. And so once I've got that, I will have to say 15 squared minus 9 squared will give me SP squared. So I've started you off. I would like you to finish finding the height for me and then go and work out the area of this triangle. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. Once you have an answer, you can let us know. Remember, you can either put it in the chat or you can raise your hand. I can already see lots of hands, but I'm going to give everyone a chance to get there. Remember your units. And remember, I have put the area formula here for us.
Y'all are doing really great. Let's go, my pebs. We nearly there.
Hey, Lolita, do you want to try?
Good evening, ma'am.
Hi.
So to figure out the height, I said 15 squared minus 9 squared equals 144 squared.
Good.
And then I rooted SP and 144, which gave me SP equals 12.
Good, well done. Okay, do you
And
want to
then-
carry on with the area?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Then for the area, I said half times 11 times 12, which gave me an area of 66 centimeters squared.
Excellent, well done. So guys, exactly as Lolita has told us, 66 centimeters squared is our area. Sorry. We needed to finish working out our height in order to get that 12 centimeters. Guys, remember, as Lolita told us, 144 is SP squared. I don't want SP squared, I want SP. So I have to square root both sides in order to get rid of the squared. The square root of 144 is 12. And then because remember we said that that SP is then the height, I can substitute that into my formula. And so half times 11 times 12 is in fact 66 centimeters squared. Got there in the end. Righto, so take your screenshot of this. And then we've got 2 more. And then you can go and try your quiz. Right, just because I want to make sure I've got enough space, because I can do it. Alrighty. So these are the last 2, yes, that I want you to try. So first thing is remember that the area of a circle, of a full circle, is equal to pi times r squared. So that's the first thing. Because that is my formula, what I need to know is the radius. Now, in both of these questions, I have been given the diameter. And so what we need to remember is that the radius is equal to half of the diameter. That's the second thing we need to remember. Third thing we need to be or take note of is the fact that in question D, I'm working with half a circle. Now, there was a question about what happens when I have half a circle, and I explained what to do. So let's see how many of us were listening. So I would like you to try working out the area for me of question C and question D, taking note of all of the things that I've just told you. Remember your units. If and when you have an answer, you're welcome to raise your hand or put it in the chat. If you're going to put it in the chat, remember to just number it C and D. Just that we know which is which. Whoops. I'm going to give everyone another minute or 2 and then we'll go through it. Just knocked my elbow on the corner of the table. I'm seeing some promising answers. Again, guys, I would round off to 2 decimal places. Just that's generally what we do. Okay, I'm going to give you another minute. Remember units for your answers. It is an area, so it should have units. And remember that your radius is half of your diameter. Okay. Nkululeko, would you like to try C?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Afternoon, ma'am.
Hi.
So what I did was I said pi times r squared, which is pi times 12 squared.
Okay, before you carry on, where did you get the 12 from?
I divided 24 by 2.
Excellent. So guys, remember, like I said, your radius is half of your diameter. So if we divide 24 by 2, we're getting 12 millimeters for our radius. Excellent. Okay, carry on.
And then after I multiplied pi by 12 squared, I got 452.40.
Okay, just out of interest, did you use pi as the symbol on your calculator, or did you use it as 3,14142?
I used it as the symbol.
Okay, perfect. So guys, just because I want to chat about rounding, the whole decimal here was 38934, blah, blah, blah. If we round off to 2 decimal places, we look at the 3rd decimal and see what effect it's going to have on the 2nd decimal. Because the 3rd decimal is greater than 4, it means that it needs to round this 8 up to a 9. So 352,39, oh golly, millimeters squared. If I said round off to 1 decimal place, that would then mean I must now look at this 8 and see what effect it has on the 3. And so if I go to 1 decimal place, the 8 will round the 3 up to 452,4 millimeters squared. So just take into account your rounding. But excellent, Nkululeko, well done.
Thank you, ma'am.
And guys, remember that radius. Excellent. Is anyone feeling up to giving me D? Okay, Emmanuel, do you want to try?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay. So I said A equals pi r squared equals pi bracket 3,2 close
Okay,
bracket
where did you
squared.
get 3,2 from?
Oh, sorry. I divided it by 6,4.
Good. Again, guys, 6,4 is your diameter. Divide that by 2 to get your radius, 3,2. Right, keep going.
So I got 32,16, and then it goes on, ma'am. So I rounded it off to 32,20. And I divided it by 2 and I got 16.1 centimeters squared.
Okay, good. So just because I'm a real stickler when it comes to rounding, please remember, guys, to not round off until your final answer. So you would keep this whole value on your calculator and divide that value by 2 and only round off in your final answer. Obviously, like, you must do what you've been told to do. I'm just like a little bit obsessive about rounding. I get quite aggressive about rounding. So I'm just making a point of it. So only round off final answer. Obviously, all of that method is perfectly fine. But we do try and only round off in our final answer. What that does is it decreases the inaccuracy of our answer, because the second you round off, you're making that value you're not making that value as accurate as it should be. And so we try and only round off in our final answer. Okay, but excellent, Emmanuel, well done. And it's not an attack on you. It's just I'm a stickler for rounding. Like, my kids know I get very aggressive about rounding, so it's okay. It's just something to bear in mind.